Hey, hello everyone. Welcome to the third episode of Silence by the Sage. I'm here with my friend Michael. Hi, Michael. And
Hi there.
yep. So we're about to do an episode around another poet, the famous William Blake and his mystical musings. And so, for those of you it's your first time watching, Silence by the Sage is a dialogical role-playing game where one of us takes on the role and the persona of some wise character, whether it's a fictional person like Gandalf or Merlin, or a historical person like Buddha or Jesus, or some poet, or someone that has some insight into the world that we're trying to see if we can try on and see what we can see when looking through their eyes. So today, like I said, we're doing the poet William Blake. And how the game works is one person will assume the role of the sage, in this case, William, and the other person will be the pupil. And the sage will first start by just reading off the quote, doing their best impression of what they think the sage might say it like. And then the pupil, hearing that, will say, "Are you trying to get me to see?" And that wording is important as opposed to, "Is this what you mean?" I'm not trying to get it kind of calculated definition or perfect understanding in some absolute understanding of what the quote is, but actually, what does it reveal to me? What perspective can I take? What perspective is he inviting me to see that I didn't see before? And we're really just always looking into the mystery and what hasn't been seen yet. And we just go back and forth like that, co-exploring. And as the sage, I'll reply with some kind of either free form, whatever I think you might say, or the structure that I can always kind of lay on is, okay, something that I heard in what Michael said that it felt like he was on to something, he was seeing something in the right direction, and then somewhere that was still mysterious, something that is still hidden and that can be explored more. So something I appreciate and then something I anticipate. And then I'll repeat the quote. And we'll just go back and forth like that, finding what we see. And I encourage anyone that thinks this is interesting or weird or whatever you think it is to try it out with a friend of yours, or if you're a friend of mine watching, try it out with me, or whatever you want to do. And I really just want to invite the sense of playfulness, because there's an interesting quality of doing this, that in trying to really get to the bottom of what and see more into the perspectives that are being offered by these quotes, we're to like using language in a really particular way. We're trying to really break through and see something more by how we talk about it. The sense of getting really precise with your language, but also a playfulness and abandon that whatever we say is just merely instruments to seeing more. We're not actually trying to get anything perfectly solidly right, but we really just play with perspectives, play with language, and explore the territory of what could be seen by trying on these roles and these quotes. Anything you want to add to that, Michael?
Yeah, I think if anybody is interested in trying this practice, I think really embracing the paradox of the two roles and like if you've watched the last episode with Jake and Kate, the moment where I believe it was Kate was the pupil and she kind of had this insight that Jake the master didn't, and like instead of Jake like kind of shunning that or being like, no, this is like the right way of seeing things, as like this being my quote, my sacred insight into the world, like he was open to her teaching him. And so like, you know yes, there's an importance in inhabiting the specific role that we're working with, but having the flexibility to as the pupil offer something, instead of kind of always being in this learner mode, and conversely the master being open to being shaped and having something new revealed to them. So I think really embracing like the structure of the activity, but also being able to go beyond that, if that makes sense.
Beautifully put. Yeah, yeah, do that for sure if you try this. So the first one, I'll be I'll be Mr. Blake first, and Michael will be my learned pupil, my learning pupil. And I'll set a timer for 10 minutes. And then after that, we'll switch roles and switch quotes. So, are you ready?
Yes.
Okay. I think he had a beard. Regardless of if they have a beard or not, I always stroke my beard as we say it. Um, so Michael, I thought I'd tell you this little nugget of wisdom. He who binds to himself a joy does the winged life destroy. But he who kisses the joy as it flies lives in eternity's sunrise.
Hmm. Well, I noticed myself, dear master, being completely puzzled and confounded by your overwhelmingly potent wisdom. Um, but I think what you're trying to get me to see is the word binding is what I'm attracted to. And I think what you're getting me to see is if we attach ourselves and try to in some way, shape, or fashion control the joy that we feel, that it actually comes at our detriment. And there's something about kissing the joy as it flies. Not really sure what that means yet, but it seems like there's a real like freedom and lightness in that experience of joy, that the binding is very like almost like consumptive, and the kissing seems more um detached, but there's something in the detachment that also feels like much more attached. I don't know. There's still a lot for me to understand, but that's my
Yeah.
first stab.
Yeah, it seems like you're starting to see some things. And I'm really hearing that distinction between the binding and the kind of attachment and the suffocating of the joy versus the liberation and the freedom of kissing it. And I hear you wrestling with that paradox of in kissing it somehow there's more detachment, but you're more intimately coupled to it. And as you pick up on that distinction between the binding yourself to a joy and the kissing the joy, I want to emphasize the aspect of in binding yourself to it, as I just say the word bind, as you said, there's a grasping and a locking down of it. And in kissing it, I will want to direct you to the enjoying it as it passes you by and not having to chase it away and chase it as it goes away and binding yourself to it and following the joy wherever it goes, but
Mm,
staying firmly seated in yourself. And as the joy comes to you, enjoying that moment, kissing it, making
mm,
love to it,
mm,
and peacefully letting it go. So really listen.
mm,
He who binds himself to a joy does the winged life destroy, but he who kisses the joy as it flies lives in eternity's sunrise.
mm. Okay, yeah. So there's some imagery that's coming to me that I think what the images that are coming to me, and I don't not sure if this is what you're trying to get me to see, but I'm imagining the metaphor here of the bird, the bird and the winged life, and the binding almost being like trying to domesticate the bird, or like trying to cage the bird, trying to keep the bird in your like clutches, as opposed to kissing the joy as it flies is like I'm picturing like a photographer or a birder or just an observer who is able to see the beauty of the bird in its habitat, like and not trying to own it for myself, recognizing that's not my place. Like my place is to let this bird go free. And somehow, when if I domesticate a bird, like I'll be able to see it every day. But in some sense it's not living as fruitfully as it could. Like somehow, and I think when you first read the quote to me, I was imagining like I think where I am now is I see the joy as its own entity. Like I see the joy as like a sentient being. And I think that's what you're trying to get me to see, is like trying to care for the joy like it would be a friend or a child or a pet or something. Is that what you're
Mm,
trying to get me to see?
mm. Your nature-based mind is serving you well in drawing images of what I'm trying to show you for sure. And I hear you really getting the distinction between the like as you said, the living and wild joy versus the caged and tamed joy. That yes, you can have it more often, but it is not the joy. The wild, free, and beautiful joy cannot be had in the same way because to have it limits what it is. And I hear you really getting that. And so I just want to ask you to ponder as I read this to you again. What is it about the free joy and the kissing of this wildness of beauty and that can come of letting it be more free that makes it like living in eternity's sunrise?
Hmm. Hmm.
He who binds himself to a joy does the winged life destroy, but he who kisses the joy as it flies lives in eternity's sunrise.
Hmm. Yeah, I hadn't been paying attention to that last part, so let me sit with that for a little bit. Eternity's sunrise. So there's a it seems like what you're trying to get me to see is that there's an element of, huh, it's almost like in kissing the joy goodbye as it flies, I somehow make myself able to experience it like all the time. Like even as I don't know why I'm getting emotional right now, Mr. Blake. But even as I re like kiss the joy as it flies, like that I first interpreted that as like trying to be detached from joy and realize that it's not permanent, that it's impermanent, that it will pass. But then I wasn't paying attention to the eternity sunrise. It's like that to me feels like a constant state of, and I wonder if the sunrise is the same as joy, if it's a different state, but it seems to be that when you're able to kiss the joy as it flies, you you open yourself up to the possibility of always experiencing it, even even though it's flying away, it's like it's somehow always accessible to you or something. Is that what you're trying to get me to see?
Hear you approaching a very deep truth, wise pupil, very deep. And so one more time, I'll just highlight just where you were going. You ask, is the sunrise the same as the joy? It occurs to me, even as just hearing you back, that the eternal sunrise that you're living in is getting to be in the center of the ever cascading flow of new and beautiful joys that are new and fresh to you every time. That
Mm,
in some ways, by binding yourself to one, you're robbing yourself of the continual flowing of
mm,
fresh emergent joys.
mm,
So one last time, I'll read it to you. He who binds himself to a joy does the winged life destroy. But he who kisses the joy as it flies lives in eternity's sunrise.
mm. Yeah, I'm really struck by what you said of the sunrise being this kind of like center, almost this like center that the joy and the light emerges from. And it's like our source. It's like our source of like constant, like ever present. And it sounds like if I'm binding myself to joy, I huh, I might be able to experience that joy for a time, but the winged life, the life within me is destroyed. That part decays. And if I'm kissing the joy as it flies, the joy itself, the momentary joy might pass, but the 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 energy and the like the life source, my soul maybe, is preserved. Is that what you're trying to get me to see?
Believe you're starting to see something very true. I'm proud of you, young student.
Oh, thank you, Gilman.
Oh, nice,
Uh,
man. All right, and with
yeah,
that,
that was
we will
beautiful.
switch sides.
Yeah. Okay. Um,
Take a breath,
stroke
dust off
my
your previous role, assume the position of the wise man.
okay. I'll stroke my admittedly less voluptuous beard than my alter ego. uh, that was William Blake. This is Willie Blake.
Really,
Okay.
Blake? Really me?
um, okay. So today, young people, I've selected a quote for you to ponder and us to engage with together. Seek love in the pity of others' woe, in the naked and outcast. Seek love there.
Hmm. Immediately struck by the depth of the truth you're trying to get me to ponder. And the first thing that I can even manage to see, are you trying to get me to see are you trying to get me to see that loving someone or something just in the ways that that are joyous and feel good are are nice but are not as sturdy, but it's actually in getting in connecting in someone's pain or in brokenness or in the naked and outcast in the ways that are not as easy to love or as pleasurable to love. In loving there, it's sturdier because in it when it's just kind of in the easy parts of it, you could say when the hard parts come, it kind of can knock the slats out from under you. Is that what you're trying to get me to see?
Mm. Yes, I think you're definitely onto something in your highlighting of the value of um, seeking love in the darkness. And I really want to turn your attention to because there's an element of the importance of seeking love in these places. But the word seek, I use the word seek love in this place. Um, and
Mm,
so I just want to ponder, I really want you to ponder what it means to like actively, like willingly, like seek it in these
mm,
places. Really,
mhm.
really, really think about that. Seek love in the pity of others' woe. In the naked and outcast, seek love there.
Yeah. Okay. Willie, are you are you trying to get me to see that seeking love in the pity of others' woe, in the naked and outcast, seeking love there is like a turning my heart towards, and I'll say a little bit more about like what I'm seeing right now, what it seems like you're trying to get me to see, or at least a piece of it, is that there's there's both a reminder that like in the outcast, in the woe, to continue seeking both to love and to receive love there.
Mm,
Like I'm
mm,
actually seek love in the pity of others. Whoa. Pity. Naked and outcast. Are you trying to get me to see that I there's an active looking, an active turning towards, an active seeking that is both conducive to my loving of the other, but also to my getting loved. Like I I need to seek love in the pity of others' woe, in the kind of depths and trenches of the turmoil of life. Like seek love there because something
mm.
there's something about why when it's
Yeah.
there, the kind of disposition that I would need to have to seek love there. Something about that. I don't know what the disposition is, but there's some kind of place I would have to come from, some kind of perspective I would have to be the kind of person to seek love there.
Mm.
And that you're trying to get me to be there and see that. Is that what you're trying to get me to see?
Yes, yes, yes. And I really see you inhabiting that here. There's a sense in which I was trying to kind of nudge you in the direction of really taking on the role of what it would mean to shine a light in the darkness, so to speak. And um, I think I want to turn it back to you to have you explore that question that you added at the end. Like, what would it take for me dispositionally, frame of mind to be able to actually, instead of being afraid or reluctant or disinterested, or not see the value in seeking love in this place, like what would it take to actually turn towards it? I know that's a big challenge, young people, but I think you're up for it.
See what I can do. Yeah. Seek love. Hmm. Well, first thing that appeared that kind of different from how I was seeing it before. Seek love. Like I just heard that different. Like it's not like I'm looking to get love or I'm looking to give love. But it's like I'm just seeking love kind of for its own sake, like just love as such. And so it's like from there, in the naked and outcast, in being with others, in myself or another, or even just like, you know, being in, I could imagine being in like a torn down environment, like places where there is the disintegration of goodness in any kind of respect. If when I am in that, how can I love this? And not just how can I give love to it? Like love as in like how do I bind myself to it? How do I fit myself to it such that I can see beauty here and that I can fall in love with it? How can I bind myself and fit myself in the pity of another's woe or in the naked and outcast? It's like, and so like, what does it take? Certainly takes a certain degree of humility that I'm having trouble mustering right now,
Mm.
and a certain degree of I have I have to want it, and I have to. It feels like the resistance is like this is why I kind of I'm grappling with the outside. Like I am giving love to the naked and outcast, but I'm also receiving it. And it's kind of not one way or another. It's like I could say that. Are you trying to get me to see that to seek love is to both that inside of me that the down and out the naked and outcast in me that I need to love is the same as the naked and outcast as the bad out there, and that I actually to to love out there I need to love in here, and to love in here I need to love out there, that there's a unity. The seeking love is not one way or another, but it's actually like to come. And I don't still know if I answered your question of like what it would take, but that's something of what I think
Mm.
you're trying to get me to see.
Mm. Well, I think you're really on the right path because there takes a certain recognition and awareness of and love for the parts within ourself that we're trying to love in the world and outside of ourselves. And I think you actually added a wrinkle to this that I had not yet seen. I was also seeing the seeking love as the giving of love, but the love as such, the love that exists like outside of us and outside of anybody that is present in a particular situation. That's you really seem to be tracking that and understanding that. And um because it's this love that exists in and through us, to be able to pay attention to it within us is part of that. It's that's a part of this process. Um and so yeah, really really listen. In the naked and outcast, seek love there. So the naked and outcast within us, the naked and outcasted people, but the the to be able to bind yourself, use that word, to be able to bind yourself to that, um and 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 not just you know being able to see love in like a dark place, but to dispense with the idea that that is a dark place to begin with, to see that
Mm.
as fundamentally still full of love.
I have seen as much as I can speak. I
Yeah. Well, you did well. You did well, young pupil. You did well.
thank
You surpassed me at the end.
thank you, Willie Blake. I your teaching that I got there. Okay, and scene.
Oh, yeah. No, that was great. Because that quote is a it's part of a poem called William Bond, and it's this poem about like this old sickly man who um he like throughout the poem he's like trying to experience love and like trying to experience goodness. Like he says, like he goes to church surrounded by fairies one, two, and three, but the angels of providence like uh destroy thee, or something like that. And so it's like he's trying to experience the light, but at every turn his health takes a turn. It seems like he can't see it. And then at the end of his life, um, he's like on his deathbed and he's surrounded by like two women. And like I think this line is like from the perspective of one of those women. It's like seek love in the pity of others' woes. So it's like these women are like seeking love with this man who is like on the verge of death, and they're kind of pitying him. um and like one of these actually weren't like sequential lines. Like one of the other lines was like love is not in the beauty of sunlight, but in the like the darkness of moon, like the moonlight of the night, or something like that. um
Mm,
so like this like real experience of like trying, I don't know, it's like it's what I was still struggling with, and what I'm curious like what you think is. It's like the pity of others' woe, like that kind of sounds like sympathy, but I think it's more than that. Like it feels more than that to me. Like it feels like, because that kind of feels like, oh, I'm like looking down on somebody in a
mm,
way. But like this poem, like I don't know, I read it and it just it felt like such an act of courage to like sit with somebody on, like just imagining like sitting with like an elderly family member on their deathbed, and like not doing it out of like duty or like obligation or like guilt or something, but like doing it out of like love, like seeing the love still there. Um, and
mm.
yeah, I thought we really kind of were able to explore that.
Yeah, no, it's a lot hearing you say that. 'Cause that just makes me think about like so my grandma, she's getting older. She's still pretty good, but she was in the hospital recently, and it was like scary for a second. She's back home now, and it's good for now. But it's interesting, like feeling like wanting to be that for her very much, and especially because she worked at like hospice for like 20 to 30 years of her life, like doing
Mm,
that with people, like being with them, like in that place, and it's like yeah, like you said, not out of obligation or any other reason than like there's a depth and there's an ability to like really get in touch with a really deep aspect of love that is really
mm,
only available there.
yeah. Yeah, and there it also seems like there's like I also, when I was 16, my grandma passed away from dementia, and unfortunately like I really didn't get to see her throughout my life because she lived in South Africa. And so when we went there, she was already like pretty much nonverbal and like in a coma. And so you know, I really like didn't actually get to spend time with her. And like, I mean, I think I was like very young then and like couldn't really sit with that, like kind of like couldn't really grasp what was going on and was just kind of like numbed by it. But like I look back now and like, you know, I mean, she pretty much went from like being able to live on her own to dying in like 6 months. Like just the decline was like so rapid. And like I think when you are in the experience of people who are either like extremely ill or you know, have suffered like a catastrophic accident or like who are like close to death, it's just you, I mean, it sounds cheesy and corny and cliche, but it's like you just appreciate like life like so much more.
Mm,
And I think that's part of the love. It's like,
mm,
and I don't
mhm,
know,
mhm,
I actually didn't even see it when I picked the quote, but like there's so much bound up with like gratitude in that. Like,
mm, mm.
yeah.
I've got like truth shivers reading that. That's yeah. Wow. That's profound and beautiful. And
Yeah.
I think about it as beautiful a spot as any to wrap
Yeah.
it up. I don't want to go on
Totally.
too long. I know we could,
Totally.
but just thank you, man, for bringing these quotes and like, yeah, it's very good, um, fruitful stuff. Like I'm like gonna be sitting with this for at least the rest of the evening and probably longer.
Yeah, yeah. No, I mean, you know, I mean, thank you for just for like starting this series, and its first two episodes have been such a joy to watch, and I think this is such a beautiful exercise. Like it, like you know, and this is something that we talk about in like our dialectic to dialogos practice. I'm sure a lot of your listeners will also be familiar with that, where it's like you're inhabiting the very things that you're talking about, and that's such a difference from what a lot of us imagine philosophy to be, which is like talking about abstract things, and that's why the kind of tropes of the tweed jacket and the skinny guy in the ivory tower who like doesn't actually offer anything relevant to society are, because it feels so detached from embodiment. And you know, I think what hopefully, you know, the viewers will see in this episode and the others is like we were in tracking what we were in, you know, as the pupil anticipating what the master was trying to communicate to us. We had to bear a part of that burden, and we had to embody it. So that's what I find really beautiful about this practice. And then you're kind of, you know, once you're done with the exercise, you know, the real skill is trying to embody that, you know, in your life, and hopefully, you know, improve your life for the better. That's, you know, that's really the goal. So, but you know, thank you, man. It's always such a pleasure to be in communion with you. And yeah, no, this was fantastic.
Thank you. Bye.